She stood at the pharmacy counter with a burning child in her arms and only a few dollars in her wallet. The medicine could save her daughter from getting worse, but the price might as well have been a wall she couldn't climb. People waited behind her. The clerk looked away. Shame and fear crushed her chest as she realized she had to choose between walking out empty-handed or begging a stranger. She didn't know that one quiet moment, overheard by the wrong person at the right time, was about to change everything. Emily Parker hadn't planned to cry in public that morning. Chicago was already awake when she stepped into the small neighborhood pharmacy on the corner of West Madison, the kind of place that smelled faintly of disinfectant and burnt coffee. She shifted her daughter higher on her hip, feeling Lily's heat through the thin fabric of her jacket. Too warm, still too warm. Just a few minutes, Emily whispered, more to herself than to the child. Then we'll go home. Lily didn't answer. Her head lolled against Emily's shoulder, her breathing shallow, her lips dry. She had stopped complaining an hour ago, which scared Emily more than the crying ever did. At the counter, the pharmacist scanned the prescription and named the price. Emily nodded, reached into her wallet, and already knew what she would find before she looked. 2 crumpled bills, a few coins. Not enough. Her stomach dropped as if the floor beneath her had vanished. She stared at the open wallet, hoping, irrationally, that something might appear if she waited long enough. It didn't. I don't have enough, Emily said quietly. The pharmacist sighed, not unkindly, but tired. There were other people in line, a woman checking her phone, a man tapping his foot. Liv's moving forward without pause. I'm sorry, he said. I can't release the medication without payment. Emily swallowed. She has a high fever. The clinic said she needs this today. They wrote urgent on the prescription. I understand, he replied, already glancing past her. But rules are rules. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. Emily felt the heat rise to her face, the familiar mix of shame and panic tightening her chest. She bounced Lily gently, trying to keep her awake. Mommy, Lily murmured, her voice hoarse. My throat hurts. That was it. The last thread holding Emily together snapped. She turned away from the counter, blinking hard as tears spilled down her cheeks. She walked to the water dispenser in the corner, her hands shaking as she filled a small paper cup. Lily drank slowly, wincing with every swallow. Emily leaned her forehead against the wall, breathing through the fear. She had worked a night shift cleaning office buildings downtown, scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans while the city slept. Her paycheck wouldn't come for 5 more days. There was no one left to call. Lily's father had disappeared the moment Emily told him she was pregnant. Her own mother lived hours away, surviving on a fixed income. She had known life was fragile. She just hadn't expected it to break like this, in a pharmacy aisle, with her child burning up in her arms. What if it gets worse, she thought. What if I go home and the fever spikes? What if I waited too long? A presence shifted behind her. How much is the medication? The voice was calm, male, steady, not rushed, not annoyed. Emily turned, startled. The man standing a few feet away looked out of place in the small pharmacy. Mid-40s, maybe, navy suit, clean cut. His eyes were focused, not on her tears, but on Lily's flushed face. $87, the pharmacist answered automatically. The man nodded once. He pulled out his wallet and placed a bill on the counter without hesitation. Emily froze. No, she said quickly, stepping forward. You don't have to. It's okay, the man said gently. She needs it. The pharmacist hesitated, then rang it up. Moments later, the box of antibiotics was placed on the counter. The man picked it up and handed it to Emily, along with the change. This is yours too, he said. She should eat something before taking it. Emily's hands trembled as she accepted it. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Gratitude tangled with suspicion, with disbelief. Strangers didn't do this, not without a catch. I can pay you back, she finally said, her voice breaking. Next week, I swear. He smiled faintly. You don't owe me anything. Outside, the morning air felt cooler. The man gestured down the street. There's a cafe nearby. She needs food before the medicine. Let me get you breakfast. Emily hesitated. Every instinct told her to refuse, but Lily shifted weakly in her arms and whispered, Mom, I'm hungry. They walked together in silence. The cafe was warm, bright with early sunlight. The man ordered without asking questions, setting a tray between them moments later. Juice, toast, eggs, fruit, coffee. Lily ate slowly, but she ate. Color returned to her cheeks. Emily followed the instructions carefully, giving her the first dose of antibiotics, watching with a focus that bordered on prayer. Only then did she realize how hungry she was herself. "I'm Emily," she said finally, wiping her mouth with a napkin. "This is Lily." "Michael Reed," the man replied. He shook her hand, firm but unassuming. She noticed then the small details she'd been too overwhelmed to see before. The scuffs on her own shoes, the roughness of her hands, the way Michael looked at Lily, not with pity, but recognition. "Do you work nights?" he asked. Emily nodded. "Cleaning offices. It's what I can do." Michael studied his coffee for a moment. "I've been there," he said quietly. She looked up, surprised. "I didn't always wear suits," he added. "Someone helped me once when I needed it most." The words stayed with her, heavy and unfinished. As they stood to leave, Michael handed her a business card. "If you want steadier hours," he said, "call me, no pressure." Emily stared at the card long after he walked away. Lily asleep against her shoulder, her fever already beginning to break. She didn't know if this was luck or kindness or something else entirely. She only knew that one small moment had shifted something deep inside her. And as she stepped onto the bus heading home, she couldn't help wondering, should she really believe that one stranger could change everything? Yes or no? Emily didn't sleep that afternoon. Lily's fever finally broke around noon, leaving the little girl exhausted but stable. She slept curled up on the narrow bed in their one-room apartment, her breathing soft and even. Emily sat on the edge of the mattress, watching every rise and fall of her daughter's chest, afraid to blink in case something changed. On the small table by the window lay the business card. Michael Reed, Reed Urban Services. Emily picked it up for the third time and turned it over between her fingers. The paper was thick, expensive. Her name wasn't on anything like this. Her world was handwritten notes, past due notices, and schedules taped to the fridge. She told herself she wouldn't call. She had learned the hard way that hope could be dangerous. People made promises when emotions were high. They disappeared when reality set in. But the image of Lily in the pharmacy, burning up in her arms, wouldn't leave her mind. Neither would the calm certainty in Michael's voice when he said, "She needs it now." That night, Emily went to work anyway. She left Lily with Mrs. Thompson next door, kissed her daughter's forehead, and stepped back into the cold Chicago darkness. The office building downtown was quiet, polished, indifferent. She pushed her cart from floor to floor, wiping down desks that belonged to people who would never know her name. Around 3 in the morning, her body ached and her mind drifted. She imagined what daytime would feel like. Sunlight, a regular schedule, being home when Lily woke up. "Stop," she told herself. "Don't do this." But when her shift ended and dawn crept in through the glass lobby, she knew she couldn't ignore the card anymore. She called after Lily finished breakfast the next morning. The phone rang twice. "Reed Urban Services," a woman answered. Emily nearly hung up. "Hi," she said quickly, before courage could fade. "My name is Emily Parker. Mr. Reed gave me his card yesterday." There was a pause. "One moment, please." Emily held the phone to her ear, her heart pounding. She expected to be told he was unavailable. Busy, gone. "Emily," Michael's voice came through. "I'm glad you called." They met that afternoon at his office. The building was downtown, all glass and steel. Emily smoothed her jeans and plain blouse before stepping inside, suddenly aware of how small she felt. Michael didn't keep her waiting. He greeted her with the same calm presence as before, offering coffee, asking first how Lily was. "She's better," Emily said. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." "You already did," he replied. "You showed up." The job he offered wasn't charity, it was work. Daytime hours, better pay, benefits, health insurance that would mean no more pharmacy panic. Emily listened carefully, waiting for the catch. There wasn't one. "I need reliable people," Michael said. "People who understand responsibility. You do." She started the following Monday. The change was immediate and overwhelming. Emily slept at night for the first time in years. She walked Lily to school in the mornings, packed lunches without rushing, waved goodbye in daylight. At work, she cleaned offices again, but this time there was structure, respect, co-workers who knew her name, a supervisor who checked in, not to criticize, but to help. Emily worked harder than she ever had, not out of fear, but gratitude. She double-checked every task, volunteered when others hesitated, stayed late when needed. Michael noticed. A month in, he stopped by her floor while she was mopping. "How are you settling in?" he asked. Emily hesitated, then spoke honestly. "It feels unreal, like it could disappear if I stopped moving." Michael nodded. "I felt that way once." That was when he told her the truth. He hadn't always been a CEO. Years ago, he'd been a young man with a sick mother and no money for her treatment. He had stood in a hospital hallway, terrified, until a stranger stepped in and paid for the surgery that saved her life. That same man had offered him a job, opening a door Michael hadn't even known existed. "I promised myself I'd never forget what it felt like," Michael said quietly. "When I saw you in that pharmacy, I saw myself." Emily's throat tightened. She had never thought of herself as anyone worth seeing. The months passed. Emily learned quickly. She took on more responsibility, coordinating small teams, helping train new hires. When one of her coworkers struggled with childcare, Emily rearranged shifts without being asked. She remembered what it felt like to be invisible. One afternoon, Michael called her into his office. "I need someone I trust," he said. "We're opening a new site. I want you to supervise." Emily stared at him, stunned. "Me?" "You," he confirmed. The promotion meant more hours, more pressure, more money than she had ever earned. It meant standing in front of people who had been in the industry longer than she'd been an adult. It also meant risk. That night, Emily sat on the edge of Lily's bed, listening to her daughter chatter about school, about friends, about a field trip she wanted to go on. "Mom," Lily said suddenly, "are you happy now?" Emily smiled, but her chest ached. She thought of the responsibility, the fear of failing, the weight of being seen. "I think I'm trying to be," she answered. Later, alone, she stared at the ceiling and wondered if accepting this next step would finally break her or finally set her free. If you were in her place, would you say yes or no? Emily said yes. The word left her mouth quietly in Michael's office, but it echoed through everything that followed. The first weeks as a supervisor were harder than anything she had imagined. Emily learned quickly that responsibility didn't come with applause. It came with late calls, tough conversations, and moments where everyone looked to her for answers she wasn't sure she had yet. Some coworkers welcomed her leadership. Others questioned it silently, wondering how a former night cleaner had earned this role so fast. Emily felt the doubt too. There were mornings she sat in her car before work, gripping the steering wheel, reminding herself to breathe. She missed the simplicity of tasks she could finish alone. Now her choices affected real people. Schedules meant childcare. Mistakes meant missed paychecks. She carried their trust like fragile glass. One afternoon, a shipment error threatened to delay operations at the new site. Tempers flared. Voices rose. Emily felt the familiar urge to shrink, to step aside and let someone louder take control. Instead, she remembered the pharmacy, the moment when fear almost swallowed her whole, and a calm voice had cut through the noise. She took a breath and spoke. "We fix this together," she said. "No blame, just solutions." She divided tasks, made calls, stayed late with her team. They worked through dinner. By the time the issue was resolved, exhaustion hung in the air, but so did something else: respect. That night, Emily came home to find Lily asleep on the couch, a book open on her chest. Mrs. Thompson smiled from the doorway. "She waited up for you," she whispered. Emily carried her daughter to bed, brushing hair from her forehead. Lily stirred and smiled in her sleep. In that quiet moment, Emily realized something had changed. Not just her circumstances, but her sense of worth. She wasn't surviving anymore. She was building. Weeks turned into months. Emily grew into her role, learning when to be firm and when to listen. She advocated for her team, pushed for fair schedules, and created a small fund to help employees facing emergencies. No one announced it. No press release followed. It was just there when someone needed it. Michael noticed, but he didn't interfere. One evening, as they walked through the building together, he said, "You're doing exactly what I hoped you would." Emily looked at him. "What's that?" "Passing it on." The real test came unexpectedly. A routine audit uncovered discrepancies tied to a former manager. Rumors spread quickly, threatening the reputation of the new site. Emily's name surfaced in conversations she wasn't part of. She felt the old fear creep back in, whispering that this was where things fell apart. Michael called her into his office again. "They're questioning your oversight," he said calmly. "I know what you did. I need you to stand by it." Emily nodded, even though her hands shook. She gathered her records, her notes, the careful documentation she had kept without realizing it might save her. In the meeting that followed, she spoke clearly, honestly, without defensiveness. She didn't deflect blame, but she didn't accept guilt that wasn't hers either. When it ended, the room was quiet. The investigation cleared her name completely. Emily walked out of the building that day lighter than she had ever felt, not because she had won, but because she had stood her ground. That evening, she took Lily out for dinner. Nothing fancy, just a small place with sticky tables and warm lights. "Mom," Lily said, swinging her legs, "remember when I was sick and we went to that store?" Emily smiled. "I remember." "You were scared," Lily said thoughtfully. "But then you weren't." Emily swallowed. "I think I was still scared. I just didn't let it stop me." Lily considered this. "I want to be like that." Emily reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. In that moment, she understood the real ending of her story wasn't a promotion or a paycheck. It was this: teaching her child that fear didn't have to decide everything. Years later, Emily would stand at a different counter, not as someone asking for help, but as someone offering it. She would recognize that same look in another mother's eyes, the same quiet panic, and she would know exactly what to do. Because life hadn't changed her through a miracle. It had changed her through one moment of kindness, followed by the courage to step forward when the door opened. As the night settled over Chicago, Emily tucked Lily into bed, kissed her forehead, and turned off the light. She stood there for a second longer than necessary, listening to her daughter breathe, grateful for how far they had come. And maybe the real question isn't whether kindness can change a life, but how many lives we choose to touch once we realize it can. How did this story make you feel? Did it remind you of a moment when someone helped you at just the right time, or a moment when you wished you'd taken a chance? If this story stayed with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what part touched you most. And if stories like this matter to you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today.